is up, everybody? My name is James D. Fiore, and this is Blackballed. Politics in Canada, probably the last decade, I would say, especially in the last decade, if you take away the shit that was happening in Quebec from the 60s until the 90s, has been a blood sport. And you can go over all the examples. The entire Trudeau run of 10 years was one of the most harrowing political climates I've seen in this country in a long time. We have had corruption all across the country. We have had various offshoot parties that have tried to sort of make their way and get past, especially on a federal level, get past that sort of two-party system to no avail. We've had a load of independent MLAs and provincial MPPs trying to carve a new path forward. It's seemingly extraordinarily difficult, given our parliamentary system in this country, to sort of start something new. But my guest today may have found the secret sauce and may have become the canary in the coal mine when it comes to a more independent grassroots kind of approach to doing politics, not only at a provincial level, but possibly something that could be translated in a sense to the federal level. He is the co-founder of Take Back ALberta, and his name is David Parker. David, how are you, buddy?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm well, thank you. I wing my intros. I just sort of go off the top of the dome. But how would you describe, first of all, why did you start Take Back ALberta, and how would you describe its impact so far inside your province?
Well, it was started with me and a yak farmer from Olds down in. We were having a secret dinner at a restaurant that let people like us eat there because, we all had to carry our papers for a while. I don't know if you remember that. And I didn't have any papers because.
Like you're talking about the vaccine passport?
Yes, I don't believe in the government forcing me to inject my body with things. So. It was very small at first. It was me and another guy, and we decided to show up to some meetings. There was a lot of meetings going on. Most of them were in like Quonsets and like small community rural town halls. People were very upset about what was going on. And all Take Back ALberta started as was a way for the unvaccinated primarily, but anybody who cared about the issue to see a political path to dealing with the frustration they were feeling towards Jason Kenney. And I just laid out a very simple 3-part plan that I developed. It's not complicated. It's not interesting. It was buy a membership in the United Conservative Party. Now, that was difficult. A lot of people hated the United Conservative Party at that point, including myself. But I said, you can go and start your own party and you can split the vote again and you can let Rachel Notley be the premier again, or you can engage in your democracy, make your voices heard, and punish the people who have done this to you. So that was a pretty popular message, and it took off in a big way. And we had 18,000 people sign up to go to the special general meeting in Red Deer to get rid of Jason Kenney. And then he canceled the vote. He just canceled the event, said that it was for safety concerns, and moved it to a mail-in ballot, which is very typical of the corrupt. And we still beat him. Well, we didn't beat him. I think it was 51% that he got, but that's not nearly enough on a leadership review to remain on for any leader. And leaders know that, and he knew that. And I'll give him credit where credit is due. He did resign, and there was a peaceful transition of power. So, he's not the devil incarnate or anything like that. But that was the beginning of Take Back ALberta. Then there was more phases because my mind works in campaigns. So you set a clear objective on a clear timeline, and then you execute. That's just politics in general. It's all campaigns. So you know when the writ's going to start, you know when the election day is. And that's how my brain works, how I operate in the world. I'm very campaign driven. So after we got rid of Jason Kenney, I just came up with the next campaign for the people of Take Back ALberta, and the next campaign. And really all Take Back ALberta was teaching regular Albertans how the political system works, how absolutely bereft of talent it is, how nobody gets involved, how nobody shows up for any of these meetings. I mean, most nomination meetings, now this is before the time of Pierre Poilievre, but most denomination meetings in Canada, in the Conservative Party of Canada, could be won with 300 to 500 people for most of the Harper era and the Andrew Scheer era and the Aaron O'Toole era, which means 300 people in a lot of ridings are picking who your member of parliament is. And you could be all conspiratorial and claim that it's some great government system, but really it's just the apathy of the Canadian people. And that was my message. In fact, what I did wasn't particularly special. People like Peter Lougheed have done it. Preston Manning did it. I just went to a ton of town halls, told my story, and explained that there is a political solution. All you have to do is the work. And I would say, so we had about 45 to 50,000 people attend our meetings. And about, I would say, of those active, you probably are looking at about 10 to 12,000 active volunteer kind of thinking people. So it's a great organization. I love Take Back Alberta, but I would say that the evolution of Take Back Alberta is that of an idea, not of an organization. And so I really see, and I know that the leader of APP really sees, the Alberta Prosperity Project is taking the ideas of Take Back Alberta. And by that, I mean not there's a great saying, professionals don't talk about strategy. They talk about logistics. And so I'm a professional at politics. I spend all my time in politics talking about logistics. I leave the strategy to the podcasters and the critics and the people who think they understand.
What about terminology? Like, would you describe yourself as a
Oh,
separatist?
I'm definitely a separatist now. I wasn't for most of my life, but I've been given no choice.
Right. So your ultimate goal of your idea gets a lot of donations. So, I mean, it is sort of an organization, but would you describe your organization as actively pursuing a way to secede from the rest of Canada?
Oh, well, actually, that wasn't Take Back Alberta's purpose at all. It wasn't created for that. It was created to teach people how their democracy works and give them an avenue to deal with the frustrations they were feeling. It was very successful at that. Alberta Prosperity Project, that's their intent and purpose, is to separate from Canada. So that organization's total purpose is to make an independent Alberta. That wasn't Take Back Alberta's purpose. It may become Take Back Alberta's purpose. I can't speak to the evolution of these things. I think of organizations as organic. They grow, they change, they react to their environment. And Take Back Alberta has done that. In fact, when the biggest issue at hand was children's rights and not having to be indoctrinated in their schools by radical ideologues, we went and did that fight and joined with the Muslims and the Sikhs and many other groups in the province to show our complete distaste for the sexualization of children. And that was very successful. Obviously, it's being challenged, and there's going to be a notwithstanding clause move, which is core to the Canadian Constitution. So, we're not a one-issue organization. We are, hey, this issue matters to you. Let me show you how you can impact that.
If you were a leader of a province or the strategist behind the scene of a province, would you prefer a Christian political hybrid or a secular state?
Well, I guess that depends on really what you mean. I think that democracy is the best form of government. So I do not believe in James Lindsay and I are good friends. He's one of the biggest opponents of the woke right down in the States. So those people get called Christian nationalists. They get called woke right. They get called all kinds of things. But it's actually the antithesis to my message. So my message is the centralization of power is the ultimate evil. And if you allow power to be centralized, you will suffer under tyranny. If you really just boil it down to one sentence, that's what I believe. That's what I've said at every single one of my meetings. That's the message I'm pounding over and over again. If you don't do something, if you put your trust and faith in politicians, if you expect someone else to fix this, nobody's coming to save you. You have to get it.
So you believe in more like an aggregate.
I actually just want the system to be dismantled. I want it to be as little centralized power as possible. Bitcoin is a good analogy for how I think of the world. So if you're a Bitcoiner, or you know people who are Bitcoiners, I believe in sovereignty. I believe in property. I believe that we need to take away as many tools from the government as possible for them to centralize.
You know who agrees with you on that? You might find this interesting. I don't know if you ever heard of the horseshoe theory, but I've had Noam Chomsky on a few times, so I've had hours and hours of conversation with him. He's with
Yeah,
it.
yeah. I
He
think
says that the ultimate,
anybody who's read history well and has any kind of, even, I'm talking very surface level knowledge of how politics
yeah,
and governance and human sociology goes, knows that the centralization of power always, always, always ends up in the same thing. And that's minorities being killed, whether they're Christian minorities or sexual minorities or racial minorities. It always ends up in genocide every single time. So my goal is to destroy as much as possible the ability of government to centralize itself. And the only way that I know how to do that in a peaceful way is through teaching people how they can use the system that we have, which is democratic and which I believe does work. There's a lot of people on my side who think there's no way we're going to vote our way out of this. There's nothing we can do. But I say, why? How can you say something's not going to work if you've never even tried it? Because most of the people that I talk to have never even engaged in politics at all, besides going to the voting booth and casting a ballot. And I think that's a negligence of their citizen, like their duty as citizens. So I see it as a sin. Not everybody sees it that way, but I see not engaging in your society, only caring about yourself, living this hedonistic lifestyle of personal self-gratification. I see that as sin, and I call people to repentance. I say, it's your apathy that has allowed our leaders to gain this much power and to be this corrupt. And unless you deal with your apathy and go and do something, one of my favorite phrases is a Latin phrase, acta non verba, which means actions, not words. I've done 400 town halls in the last 2 years. I take action. I do things. Most people just speak words.
taking action. If you have a lofty political goal, or a formidable political goal like yourself, like the decentralization of power, I kind of hope, I guess, that Alberta will go on its own or whatever. I'll remove violence from my question because, first of all, I don't want to get you in trouble, but I don't think you would say this anyways. But violence aside, is there an end justify the means sort of concept that you can apply and feel good about it because of the greater good you're trying to accomplish? Whether that means, forcing people from office through, political scandals, or whether it means protesting or activism or whatever. Is there an ends justify the means? Is that ever considered to be a legitimate way to move forward in order to reach your
You're going to have to clarify your question. It's a little bit ambiguous.
Well, the clarification is difficult because I'm trying to figure out, like some people, okay, you mentioned earlier that the woke ideologues, and a big part of me is with you on this. Like I'm a I don't want to say radical centrist because people have kind of made that kind of a meaningless statement, and it sort of is meaningless. But I like the moderation stuff. I like, because I know you're never going to convince everyone to go one way, and so there's always going to be massive dissent if you try to go too far one way, too far the other way. And most people on both of those sides call people like me cowards because we don't make up our mind. But that is my mind being made up. I think there needs to be three parts, not two wings, right? But um, and ends justify the means, meaning civil disobedience, for example. And remember, I'm taking violence off the table. What is the limit that a person like yourself would go to in order to achieve your political ends? Maybe I'll ask the question like that instead.
There's no peaceful limit. Like, I'm not going to commit violence. I'm a follower of Christ. I don't believe in the use of the sword to push ideas. So that would be my limit. Violence would definitely be my limit. I will not personally do violence to someone for my ideas because that's completely against my faith. It's not my faith. I mean, I know there are Christians who don't agree with me, but when I read scripture, when I read the words of Jesus Christ, when I read the words of St. Paul, it's very clear to me that violence is not on the table for me. So I'm not going to do violence. But if there's any law or any social norm or thing like that I believe is evil or against the laws of God, I'm going to oppose it as loudly and as
Do
clearly as I
you
can.
do you consider yourself a political operative?
I've definitely been a political operative for most of my life. Yeah, I'm probably now I'm outside of the system now. I don't get paid by politicians. I don't make my money off politics anymore. But I mean, I've done 42 campaigns. I've held national roles on campaigns. I think I've started third-party advertisers. I think it would be fair to say that I have operated in the political arena.
Can you lift the curtain? The people that you were talking before about the people that are apathetic. One reason why I think they're apathetic is because some of them, they have an instinct that there's something a little crazy about politics that the public generally doesn't see or hear about. Things that go on in campaigns, things that go on behind the scenes. As a political operative yourself who's worked on 42 campaigns, you must have seen certain things. Like, if you lift the curtain, what would Canadians or Albertans be shocked about if they knew was a normalized sort of set of behaviors within the realm of politics, whether it's a campaign or whether it's rivals like trying to vie for the same seat on a by-election? Like, give us an idea of some of the dirt.
Well, I think the most surprising thing to people would be how much their donations are used to fill the pockets of people who've centralized power around themselves. And I think the best examples of this are campaign managers that create their own vendor companies. So, like, whether that's phone calling, and also if a political operative comes to you and tells you that you need to do phone banking, they are a grifter. That's just the fact.
It's also how they skirt campaign finance rules too.
I don't know. I mean, there's no, as far as I know, it's a perfectly legitimate financial expense, right? Is to pay for phone calling. But like, we're talking about some people are paying $20 for an ID, $20 for one ID. Well, I could go and door knock. I could hire a door knocker for $20 and they would get 10 IDs. So there is a lot of grift, right? Especially in the advertising space, the digital space, the phone calling space. Like, these people build these little vendor companies to enrich themselves off of politics because honestly, there's no money in Canadian politics. There's lots of money in Canadian government. So like, you can get a lot of money by having people that are elected that can get you sole source contracts. We've seen this all over from every party. This is not a unique thing to any one kind of political ideology. It is a feature of our political system. When there's so much apathy, corruption just flourishes, and it flourishes in politics. It flourishes in government. It flourishes in the church. Corruption's everywhere. It's a very human problem. But in terms of what would surprise people, I honestly think in many ways what would surprise them is how boring it is. Most of politics is just doing the same thing over and over again. I'll give an example for myself. I gave about 200 speeches for Take Back Alberta, and I gave the same speech almost 200 times. Now I changed up things a little bit, but I gave the same speech 200 times. I don't even want to hear that speech again. I'm so tired of giving.
Comedians feel the same way about their acts when they go on the road. They do the same
right. It's like, I mean, Pierre gives the same speech. Everybody's just giving the same speech, and that's because it works and that kind of thing. So I think, like, the other thing I think that would surprise people a lot is how much time is spent trying to manipulate them. Right? It's like, well, what will this word say to people? What will this way of talking about an issue? Oh, that thing happened. Like, one of the sickest things about politics is if a tragedy happens, politicians want to use it to their advantage.
Yeah, I don't know if you saw Poilievre get dissed by the mother of that of the child that was killed. Oh my God, I forget the context. He just did a
I'll be
presser
honest, I
a
don't
couple
pay
days
a
ago.
huge amount of attention to Pierre because I think he's going to just lose to Mark Carney.
If I recall correctly, it was I think that someone was let out on bail. And
yes. Well,
yeah, And then he shook the father's hand, and then the mom was like, "No, I ain't shaking your hand." And that was interesting to me, and I was like, "Good for her in a way," because of what you just said, like utilizing a tragedy for
Oh, this happens
political.
all the time. It's way worse in America. Way, way
Oh,
worse.
that's where thoughts and prayers came from. That's where thoughts and prayers came from. You know, like that's literally where that sentence came from. I'm not talking about a religious aspect. I'm literally talking about sucking the religion out of the idea of thoughts and
Yeah,
prayers
yeah. I
into
think
saying it
like
boilerplate when it.
I've watched it so many times and it's so obvious, and both sides do it. There's like I would actually say that I think the Conservatives are not as bad at it as Liberals and NDP. I mean, look at
Liberals
how
and NDP
much.
don't pray.
No, I mean at using crises. I think the Liberals are actually masters at using crises, particularly gun violence, to push their agenda. So it happens everywhere. This is politics. Politics is about using events to make people feel. I think what a lot of people don't understand about politics is it's social engineering. They think it's about policy. So most people think that politics is about convincing people of how good your idea is.
I
And
also
the
think
reason
that
for
people. Sorry, I also think that people don't understand how, you know, how like I was watching um John Kirikou, I think his name is. He's an ex-CIA guy that spent like I think it was like 2.5 years in jail for something that was ridiculous. Anyways, he talks about how, you know, there's a general sort of respect or under because you know that you're going to do the same thing to them that as they are doing to you, and let the best spy win kind of thing. And I don't think people understand how that translates into the political world. The dirty tricks that take place in politics that no one knows about when campaigns aren't even happening, I find to be one of the most vastly underreported aspects of political news because it's not even considered news. And I think it's because there's like you know, everyone's got skeletons, so you don't want to go to the media with dirty tricks because then someone's just going to be like, well, what about what you did to that politician last year? And it's just going to be, it's going to culminate until everyone realizes that all the major parties and all the provinces and across Canada are, except for the NDP, they don't seem to have a strategist, but seem to be engaged in this dirty tricks, these scandalization of politicians in order to have them to for their seat count to be reduced or whatever. You must have seen some of that. I've seen that, and I've only
Oh
worked
yeah,
in it.
I mean, I was very intimately involved in the takedown of Andrew Scheer. This is a well-known public fact, and you make it sound like dirty tricks, and I guess you could use those words. But is it a dirty trick to expose someone's corruption? I
Depends,
don't
I
think
guess.
so.
You know how embellished it is, or
If
how.
the facts are the facts, and the facts need to be known. Now, some parties, leaders, people are better at hiding their skeletons in their closet, as you said, than others. But we people don't. I mean, how many campaigns have you worked on?
Two, dude, like nothing like you.
Okay, okay. So like
I worked on a mayoral
I do this
campaign.
all the time, right? As
Yeah, right. Yeah.
people don't like this, but it's true. Until you've done something enough to be a master at it, you don't really understand it.
Oh, I know I
Um,
didn't understand it.
and
I'm
farming
well
is a good
aware.
example, right? So anybody who thinks that they could go and just grow their own food outside of a garden, and even that is very difficult, but like could grow their own, they're idiots, right? They're truly stupid people. And most people who dwell in cities are, because they just don't even know where their food comes from. And so to think that they can, make fun of farmers or call them names because they don't agree with their worldview when they're feeding them is stupid. And I have lots of farmer friends, and I could never be a farmer. I'm not good at that kind of thing. I can't fix things with my hands. I don't have a mechanical mind, right? So recently I was sitting down with a farmer, and he was trying to tell me what I should do in politics. And I looked at him and I said, if I came and told you how to farm, you would laugh at me, right? Because I have never farmed. I don't know how to farm. Don't come tell me how to do the thing that I'm the master of, right? So
Can you get
this is
on
the
that?
problem with politics, though. It affects everybody, right? It
Can you
affects
can you do me
everybody.
a
So
favor?
everybody thinks they understand it. but they don't.
Can you do me a favor and go back to the Andrew Scheer thing? Because I'm not from Alberta. I may have missed it. But for people that don't understand what you're talking about, can you tell us how you were intimately involved in that? You said it was public knowledge anyways, if you don't mind
Yeah, I
talking about that.
started it. So when Andrew Scheer lost the 2019 election to blackface Justin Trudeau, even though he did win the majority, like literally that was one of the big issues during that campaign. Like the guy wore blackface and he
You know
still,
the
and Andrew
mistake,
Scheer,
if I may interject for a second, the
pardon
mistake
me?
that Andrew Scheer made, just give me a second. You know what he should have done? When those photos came out, what he should have done before he got on that plane, because you remember he found out and then he immediately got on a plane and went go campaigning. What he should have
Yeah.
done right at that moment is say this. Seriously. We've been talking about the liberals and their cancel culture for past mistakes for a long time and how it's unfair to people and it's woke ideology. So let me just say this. Is it disgusting that he wore blackface? Yeah. Do we think he should resign because of it? No. That's not who we are as conservatives. That's what he should have done.
I agree. Well, I mean, let me just be clear. I've been a very big critic of Andrew Scheer even before he was elected leader. I was on Maxime Bernier's side of that split in the party.
Oh, the dairy
And
board,
I
the dairy
didn't.
board leadership race. Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't go. I didn't go with Maxime to his little People's Party, and I think that has historically proven to be a very wise move because there's just nothing there. But what I did, I hate losers, and that it's a bit of a moral failing on my part. I have no interest in associating with them. I don't want them to lead things, and he was a loser and
Hating
decided that
losers
he
is in
wanted.
style right now. You sound like a Trump kind of thing, like
Oh
that's
yeah, no, I'm a very big fan of Trump's,
okay.
but I don't like people who think that. I mean, I feel the same way about Pierre Poilievre. I don't like people who lose and then try to convince us that they're not actually losers. Because what does a loser do? They lose, and that's what he did. And so as soon as he decided that he was going to stay on and made that announcement, I started a group called Scheer Must Go. And I campaigned about 15 to 16-hour days for 2 months. And I was the one who uncovered the fact that the Conservative Party of Canada was taking donors' money and paying for his children's private education.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
And we got that into Fife's hands. Funnily enough, one of the only conversations on the phone that I've ever had with Jenny Byrne was the night before we got that into the. So I mean, I am massively connected. I've been on tons of campaigns. I know all these people, not just like in the newspaper. I've worked with them or against them. And I think what a lot of people don't understand about politics is that the biggest battles are between people who are on the same side.
Oh,
That's
and
true.
I agree with you. And by the way, you said earlier about, and I think I agree with you on this too, that the left or center left are a little bit more guilty of utilizing strategies to their political advantage. I'm positive that conservatives in this country, they talk about the left wing firing squad. Oh my God, the internal squabbling among conservative groups is
Oh,
insane.
it's way worse. It's not
Yeah,
even comparable. It's not at all comparable. Because
no,
and there's a sociological reason for that, right? Is
because they don't like losers. I'm kidding.
Yeah, well, yeah, that's a big part of it. But even a bigger part of that is conservatives are more independent minded people. They just prefer to make their own decisions. They prefer to live their own lives. There's a reason that a lot of farmers are conservative. It's because they're very close to the land.
They
There's some
could
of
be
them.
power hungry too. Let's not get it twisted.
Oh,
There's a lot of power
that's the
hungry people.
problem. I mean, and those are the conservatives
Yeah.
that I've fought. Jason Kenney got over power hungry. I took him down. I am not interested in power hungry people being involved.
What kind of blowback do you ever receive from taking down Jason Kenney or taking down Andrew Scheer? Like,
Oh,
what do you?
I was
Is there any blowback
blackballed.
that
I
you?
was blackballed when I
Oh, well, welcome to the
when I
show.
initially I've lost probably about 2/3 of my lifelong friends when I went after Kenny. They just stopped talking to me. A lot of them loved Kenny. A lot of them had followed him. A lot of them. I was Kenny's I was regional director for Central Alberta in his leadership campaign, right? I raised the guy hundreds of thousands of dollars. I got 5,000 memberships, real ones, not like the fake ones that he got from certain communities in the province.
Did anyone ever say to you, "You killed Kenny"?
Oh yeah,
yeah.
There's a big joke in the Western Standard office. There's even like a made up headline, but
yeah. All right, I want to pivot here to it. There was a story in the Tyee that came out not, I guess it was like 4 days ago, or no, about that. Parker vows. It's funny how you're so well known they don't have to.
It is a little funny, isn't it?
Parker vows he and Take Back ALberta will escape punishment. I'm just going to read a little bit from this article to contextualize it, then I'll go to you. David Parker is supremely confident that he will never pay $112,500 in fines levied by Elections Alberta against himself and Take Back ALberta, the political activist organization he leads. Nor does he think he will ever be prosecuted for failing to file third-party advertiser financial information to Elections Alberta. They haven't contacted me in any way to try to get the money, which is interesting, Parker said in a recent interview. Parker may have reason to be confident. Recent inquiries by the Tyee found neither case against Parker or Take Back ALberta is currently being legally pursued, and there is confusion about whether the Alberta Crown Prosecution Service is even responsible for prosecuting the Elections Canada case. It also goes on to say that that you're still close with Danielle Smith and she went to your wedding and all that. Maybe I heard wrong. I'm not from Alberta. I had thought that you and Danielle Smith were no longer.
Well, I'm going to be honest. The Tyee is not exactly a pinnacle of journalistic integrity. I'll give you an example of this. They say that I owe $112,500. Take Back ALberta, the legal entity. And I know journalists sometimes struggle with like basic understandings of how business or, corporations or things like that work. But Take Back ALberta is a legal entity, and it's been fined $112,500. I, David Parker, have been fined $7,500. Now, those are two very different things, right? The legal entity can raise money for those fines, whatever, if it has to. I could pay my fines if I want to, but I am currently in court against Election Alberta for the violation of my charter rights of freedom of assembly, because I also have from the Deputy Elections Commissioner permission to hold the events that they're now trying to charge me for. And on top of that, I have 1,000 people willing to testify that it was not political advertising. And then in fact, at every single one of those meetings, I told people not to trust politicians and that they had to get involved. It's going to be a long court case. It's going to be humiliating for Elections Alberta. I could go through all the details of how humiliating it's going to be, but I'm going to particularly enjoy it because I enjoy humiliating bureaucrats. Usually they're quite dumb. So it's going to be a spectacle, which I'll enjoy as well. But I'm not.
Is Danielle Smith your new Jason Kenney? Like, are you guys in that place?
I mean, I hate corruption, and I hate the corruption that's going on in her government, and there's a lot of it. And it's not just the AHS scandal. There's just so much money being funneled to friends. Now, people say, well, David, that's just politics. Whenever anyone gets into power, they funnel their money to their friends. Maybe it is just politics. I call wrong. I'm not going to back down on that. I've had people tell me that I'm destroying the movement I created, that I just hate everybody, that I have a cycle of supporting people then feeling betrayed by them. There's all kinds of analysis out there by the individuals, including the premier. Look, I'm not running campaigns right now. I'm not doing meetings. I have a young son. I have another child on the way. I have multiple businesses. I'm trying to restart kind of how am I going to engage with the public in my current state, in the sense of, am I going to do meetings? Am I going to start a podcast again? How am I going to make sure that I'm continuing to educate people? But the truth is that I've already passed the mantle of leadership onto somebody else in terms of the political side.
It's not Nathan Pike, is it? Just kidding. The reason why you mentioned the AHS stuff. So there are lots of rumors behind the scenes. There's lots of things that have been brought to my attention, and I'm trying to figure out. First of all, what's your relationship like with Carrie Tate,
I mean, we talk
the
quite
reporter from the Globe?
frequently. She's a reporter. Right, most of the time we talk about things like golf and walking and boring stuff like that.
Golf and walking.
But like I mean, if you understand politics, you know that political operatives talk to reporters. I talk to anybody. I'll talk to you. I really don't care about that. I'm married to a journalist. I work with the biggest journalists in the world. I understand the media ecosystem. They like being understood because a lot of people don't understand them. And I'm generally pretty polite. I mean, Carrie Tate's written stories about me that I didn't like. Doesn't matter. I think she's almost always fair. She's a great journalist. And I admire great journalism. I admire it so much. I married one. So we have I think the best, we're colleagues in a sort of way, but not in the way that like most people would understand what a colleague is.
You're a source, right?
I mean, I'm a source for her regularly, but in terms of what the relationship is like, colleague is probably the best analogy. Now, we don't work.
I'm going to go ahead and assume that you were a source for some of the AHS.
Actually, because I want to know. Not at all. I want you to think about this logically for a second. I'm the leader of the unvaccinated. Sure. Okay. I constantly hammer AHS. I say it needs to be destroyed. I say it needs to be dismantled and destroyed. Now, use reason here. I know you're capable of it. How many sources do you think I have in AHS?
Oh, I don't think that's necessarily where you're most effective for the AHS story. So, do you know who Mahmoud Murad is?
Oh yeah, Mac's a good friend of mine. Yeah.
Okay, so we were talking earlier about ends justifying the means for being a political operative, and and whether or not I think you mentioned that the Andrew Scheer thing was you stating things that were true that people should know about anyways, like the funding going towards his kids' private education.
Well, you know who was really mad about that?
Who was that? Oh, well, there you go. So what my point is, though, is that I've discovered, because I've been working on the AHS story from an out of province perspective, and trying to figure out why Athena Mentzelopoulos is considered to be credible. I'm trying to figure out why Globe reporters sent people all the way to Lebanon to cover a procurement story in Alberta. Globe and Mail won't answer me, but your name keeps on coming up as being connected to Carrie Tate, and how it's possible that as a political operative, you may have been working behind the scenes to help navigate and show her the path to Lebanon and things like that. Like, is there any truth to that? Can you tell me anything about that?
No.
And would you tell me the truth?
Yeah, if you were behind, because the truth. It's one of my number one principles. But no.
Jesus is watching.
Carrie Tate is one of the best journalists in the country. She doesn't need my help on anything.
Okay. And then there was another gentleman I wanted to name, Hassoun Rahal. Like these are guys that it feels like are connected to this story. He owns the spa station in Edmonton.
The spa station?
No, it's a spa. Anyways, these are people that seem to be connected to this story, but in a backdrop sort of way, where they're like almost like working at the other end to listen. Think what you want about the AHS procurement stuff. It feels to me like that vendor is being scandalized excessively that have nothing to do with the procurement.
Well, yes,
stuff.
I know that money
so that it could be attached to Danielle Smith
for to say those things. So I know that money is being paid to either you or associates of yours by Sam to.
You're talking about David Wallace. You're talking about David Wallace. I'm just
well, I know that David Wallace is being paid to say things.
You'll have to ask David about that, but
I don't need to ask him. I know
But if I receive travel itinerary, I receive documents and communications that seem to indicate that there is like an ongoing effort. like, it's fine if you want to talk about procurement processes. That's great. Talk about that till the cows come home. Talk about hockey tickets. Talk about all that stuff. I'm curious why how you describe Carrie Tate as like a really good journalist. I guess it's a subjective kind of
Well, it
thing, but
really isn't. She's
why
well
would
known in the journalistic community as being one of the best.
right? Mark McKinnon, another reporter of Globe and Mail, went to Lebanon and posed as an NGO worker, promising water infrastructure plans that he could help facilitate for this little village called Jebjanine. But they never reported about it. Do you find it just weird? Like take yourself out of it for a second. That a provincial procurement story would result in Globe reporters traveling to the Middle East to talk about things unrelated to the procurement scandal, unless they were given some sort of tip.
Well, I've told Sam that he just needs to sit down with her and tell his side of the story, but he's too afraid of that, and he just works through lawyers and journalists. I mean, most people don't understand how journalists actually work, but they love what they do, and it matters to them, and they want to do it very well. And Carrie is one of those people. And if someone's not going to talk to them, then she believes there's a story there. So I've personally sat down with Sam and told him he just needs to do an interview with her and he can deal with this problem. But instead, he pays people like David Wallace to who,
Well, I don't think it's a smart move for him to sit down with Carrie Tate because he feels that his life has been turned upside down in the name of background. Like the idea that Carrie, listen, I don't really agree with you on Carrie Tate. And one of the reasons why is because the first thing they teach you at J school is don't become the story. When you can't answer questions,
who
and this
made
is,
her the
you should
story?
appreciate this as well.
No,
She
she
made
didn't.
herself the story. Well, she did because listen, I went to journalism school. I did my thing for 20 years as an independent freelancer. I was a reporter for a short stint in a newsroom or whatever. But the point is that you have two types of editors. The kind of editor that's like, and this appears to be what Walmsley's like at the Globe and Mail, where it's like you never become the story, you never talk to anyone about anything, and there's other editors that are like, stand up for your work. Sometimes you're going to have to be on the other side of that microphone and people are going to want to ask you questions. Why are you interviewing 300 people in the Lebanese community about waitresses and their father's military background? For example, there appeared to be a concerted effort to sort of paint this person. And I'm like, listen, I'm not on anyone's payroll, but I've seen the stuff myself where it looks like they're trying to paint this person as someone that's completely unsavory, that has nothing to do with the procurement scandal. And so I want to know more about that. But if it falls on deaf ears, when you ask the reporter who works for the outlet responsible for that sort of permeating, and so you can't be a fan of media. I'm not real a big fan of media. Do you think that it's
Which media?
fair? All media.
I'm a very big
I
fan
don't
of
like any of them.
certain media.
Not a big fan of any mainstream
No,
outlet.
I'm not a fan of any
And
mainstream
Global,
media, no.
well, the Globe and Mail is a mainstream outlet, and it typifies to me the tactics. And we were taught this in J school too about when it was considered tabloidian to, in the name of background info, to try to. Oh, let's put it like this: the Globe and Mail back in 2018, I think it was. They were going after a media tycoon. I've mentioned it before. I'll mention it again. Moses Neimer, the guy that founded City TV.
Okay,
Right?
probably
He's
before
from
my
Toronto.
time. I've never heard this story, but
Do you remember Speaker's
I've
Corner?
heard of it. Yep, yeah, I've heard of Genius.
Okay, so he started that. He started Much Music.
Oh,
Put it that
okay.
way.
Well, there you
Started all
go.
that
There you
stuff,
go.
right?
Sounds like okay. I know that one.
And the Globe and Mail, I someone that worked there told me this. They're like, it's crazy here, and I'm like, why? So it was just right around Me Too, or just after, just before. I think it was just after or during the Me Too era, or whatever you want to call it. And they were like, we don't. This reporter was like, we don't get news tips anymore, or get police reports anymore, or anything like that. We look at industries. We pick the big three from each industries, the men, and then we go
Really,
fishing.
that's what they said to you. Wow. Wow.
That's what they said to me. So the same outlet now listen, the procurement scandal, have your cake. Do whatever you need to do about reporting on how contracts are awarded and whether or not they were overpaid or whatever. That great. Have that conversation. It's the fishing. And
Hmm.
so whether or not David is on anyone's payroll is irrelevant to me. I think it's really interesting news to find out that the same outlet that I was covering doing this like 7 years ago is still doing it. the fishing part of that story. And it appears to me, because there's all these people on this side, and I would include yourself. Maybe you have nothing to do with it, maybe you do, but I'm just including yourself. That there's an alignment of interest between yourself and Nathan Pike and Athena Metsalopoulos and Carrie Tate and the Globe and Mail, where they all seem to be, despite coming from different political backgrounds, want Danielle Smith gone. And what better way to do that than to not only take something that's a story, maybe you even want to call it a scandal, that's great, and then over scandalize it by going fishing and starting rumors in order to attach her office to a story like this. And that's what I think is happened to the story.
No, I
So
think
I'm not,
you're
I don't have
onto
a dog in
something
the
in a
fight.
sense, but I think you've connected two things that aren't connected. And I'll this is how I explained it to Sam, and this is how I explain it to you. Sam is let's talk about the back room, right? You wanted to talk about the dirty stuff, the stuff that happens is in the game of power, pretty much anything goes, especially if power is centralized, right? So when a group of people don't want someone to remain in power, they will use any tool at their disposal to remove that person, right? And the people that want Danielle Smith gone, and there are many, many, many of them. In fact, when I was a close ally of hers, literally it kept me up at night, be like, how is this woman going to survive? Because everybody wants to take her out. Now, it turned out I was being deceived by her. She's actually incredibly good at surviving. And not only that, she's really, really good at backstabbing people. Pretty much everyone who's been close to her and helped get her there, there's 3 or 4 exceptions to that, have just been lied to, manipulated, and then discarded. That's just how she operates. She is a floor crosser, not just in her political activities, but in her very personality. So there's a lot of people who are very upset with Danielle Smith. I used to be much more upset than I am now. Honestly, probably. And she said this, having kids does mellow you out a little bit. It just makes you view the world a little bit of a different way. I still want her gone. I still don't think that she should be there. And when I hear that there's corruption going on, like I've been told by many, many people, and it's not just Sam Maresh, right? That is the tip of the iceberg of the corruption that's going on. That makes me.
I'm from Ontario. Let me just say something. I'm from Ontario.
Yeah, it's way worse there. It's like, way worse there. There's no question.
That wouldn't even make.
Oh, I'm aware. I'm aware. But Ontario is literally a failed state at this point that is crashing into oblivion. So, I mean, corruption does that.
When I heard about the story, I was reading it. I read it over and over again. And I'm like, is this about hockey tickets? Like, because even if you looked across the country, that story, and again, I'm not trying to throw shade on Global Mail. I'm just saying that story was common in like literally every province. Like procurements were taking place. Everyone was panicking. Yeah. They were overpaying for stuff. And it was happening all over the place. So I'm just like, what is? And then, sorry, not to belabor the point, but that's when I started finding out the whole fishing part, the shaking of the ankles part that the Globe and Mail were engaged in again. As I remember they were with Moses Neimer, I was like, okay, there's something else going on here. And then now I just feel this other dot that you don't think is connected.
No.
I still think
you didn't let me finish. You didn't let me finish, right?
Oh, I'm sorry. Please go on.
Okay, let's use an example, one that you might not be aware of, but any Albertan watching this would be very aware of. Alison Redford, right? So Alison Redford, everybody hated her. She was terrible. Her spa visits. And I can go into all the reasons that I think she is terrible from a policy perspective. I'm not talking to her about personality or whether I like the person. The things that she was doing, people didn't like. But what took her down? The Sky Palace.
I don't recall, but I thought it was her own
the Sky Palace. She spent a mere, right. I think it was like, it was way less than $50 million. I think it was like $10 million renovating the government house for there to be an apartment for the premier at the top of it that she could live in. Okay. That pissed a lot of people off. Yeah. I'll give you another example. Nigel Wright. Okay. What the media did to Nigel Wright.
Oh, the guy with the best PR on the planet.
What the media did to Nigel Wright is one of the most pathetic excuses for a takedown of a man that I have ever seen in my entire life. $90,000 out of his own pocket to pay the taxpayer back, and that's a scandal. You want to talk about scandals? You want to talk about the the unfairness of the media and the absolute ridiculousness. Go read stories about me. Apparently, I hate women, even though I helped get a woman elected premier, the second woman elected premier, I think, in the history of the province. Apparently, I don't think they should
It eats
have
the beard
jobs,
and the
even though I
military
married a journalist who has, a very successful journalist, more successful than almost any mainstream journalist. She was at the assassination attempt in Butler. She's broken stories that have got 6-7 million views on X. But everything gets twisted. This is the world of twisting. It's a world of lies. The media is the world of lies, primarily.
I agree.
And here's the thing. Political people will use the media. I've done this. Many people have done this to push a particular agenda. For example, Andrew Scheer, right? Like, I wanted the truth out. I knew the media loves these kind of stories. And so I got it to the media, right? Now, in the case of Sam Maresh, I think his problem is that he has no idea how to deal with the media. He's going about it all wrong. He's talking to the wrong people. He's paying the wrong people. If he is innocent, and I'm not going to make a claim one way or the other whether he is. I told him this to his face. I'll say it to him. I'll say it publicly. If he's innocent,
the BLG report seems to think he's innocent, but
we'll see. Yeah. He says it is.
It's been
there's been leaks. We'll see. I've told him this. Yeah. If he is innocent, I will be one of his biggest defenders because I hate when politics is used to destroy regular people. If he's not innocent, I will be one of his biggest critics. That's what I told him. The next week, maybe 2 weeks after that meeting, David Wallace starts yammering on about my text messages, which I've never shared with David Wallace. I've never sent to anybody. I showed Sam Maresh on my phone that, yes, I do talk to Carrie Tate because he was worried about that. And he memorized a few of those messages and gave them to David Wallace. Now, those are not the actions of a man that I can trust or that I think is innocent. So that's my personal read on the situation is he's desperate. He's going to a very pathetic man.
I think desperate people talk to the media. See, when working for some of the people that I've worked for in the past, I'm not talking from a journalist standpoint, but from, as a speechwriter or copywriter in the corporate world, the first thing that they tell anybody is like, innocent or guilty, just don't talk to the media. It's not going to work, and just wait for, if you're innocent, just wait. And the truth will come out.
But that's not politics, again, right?
With the procurement,
that's what I explained to him.
But that's the thing. He's not a politician.
Right? No, but he's being used he has been brought into a political situation.
Right. I think he is being used. Listen, the Carrie Tate side of this, the reason why I get so offended is because I worked in this field for 20 years, granted as a freelancer, but I was breaking stories. I was doing my thing. The cherry picking makes me feel like the Globe and Mail have a political bent embedded inside their reporting that I thought the CBC, like literally they're reporting. Cut out there
for a second. What'd you say?
I said that the Globe and Mail is reporting, is cherry picking their reporting. Like if you've ever looked into Athana Mentzelopoulos, you would know immediately that she's grifted the BC government. She's caused the death of a person by putting out false information. She's done all these things in her past that makes her not a very credible source. And then she releases illegally obtained documents to the media. Like, I think that her lawsuit's going to blow up in her face. But my point is, when you go to the extent that Carrie Tate has gone to protect her source, i.e. Athana, it impacts your ability to broadly report on the story, because why would you then go ahead and report on the background of apparently this key witness and this key source of this whole thing? If it's shady, then you lose all your exclusivities. So now you're sitting there and Carrie Tate, I believe, weighed that in her mind. She's like, okay, Athana's background is checkered as fuck. Like, the woman even has a GoFundMe campaign when she owns like millions of dollars in properties and she's got all this stuff going for her. Like, I'm just like, what the hell? All taxpayer money. All she cares about is getting paid by the public. But none of that shows up in Carrie Tate's reporting. And at the same time,
that's interesting. I didn't know that. I don't know Athana at all.
And at the same time, the vendor in the
Raj
story.
Sherman. Do you know who Raj Sherman is?
No, I think I've heard the name.
He was formerly the leader of the Liberal Party, but he's a good buddy of mine. And his brother-in-law, I think, worked for Athana and only had wonderful things to say about her. So, I mean, there's different.
Well, I'm talking about media reports. I'm talking about like actual news reports. She got a cushy job for her husband while she was the top advisor for.
You'll have to forgive me if I don't think that media reports have a lot to say about a person. Go read the ones about me, right?
No, but these are like government, like contract stuff reports, like the same. Anyways, the point is, you could go verify yourself, but trust me, it's not rumor mill stuff. It's like working for, I always forget her name, the Liberal in BC,
Christy Clark.
Yeah, she was like her bridesmaid, right? So then she gave her a job, and then her husband got a job, and then she threw a bunch of people
nepotism. Yeah.
Then she threw a bunch of researchers under the bus. One of those researchers committed suicide, and the coroner's report basically blamed Athana. And then she moves on to Alberta, and now she's suing and for wrongful dismissal and this and that. And it's just like, that's fine. Maybe even if she's innocent this time, wouldn't a robust news report be like Athana Mentzelopoulos, who once made the news for also doing this, is claiming that now this is happening? Like they would do that for any main subject of a story. Unless,
that's an interesting. I didn't know that information, so that's very interesting information.
Anyways, I don't want to get bogged down on this too much, but I hear what you're saying. I'm glad you at least you're open to the idea that like well, the innocence or guilt of the procurement scandal part is not all that important to me, but like the look, I'll just tell you, a bunch of people went to Lebanon to dig dirt on a man that had nothing to do with the scandal, and I found that to be curious at best. But I can't find any Globe and Mail person to actually give me an answer as to why they did it, and that is interesting to me. I've never met Sam. I have no idea, what his life is like. But when Doug Ford had the Greenbelt scandal here in Ontario, no Toronto Star reporter went to Sicily to look into the developers that were attached to it.
Okay, I think comparing Doug Ford to anything, I mean, the man is corrupt, right to his very core. Everybody knows it. That's just how it works. So my issue, you may not care about hundreds of millions of Canadian taxpayer dollars being funneled to political friends, but I do. And I'm going to continue to care about that, because if we don't protect the sacred nature of the trust between the public purse and the taxpayer, then we are just a banana republic, which, arguably we probably already are. But I'm not at all interested in letting things like that slide. I am not at all interested in allowing people to have access based on their relationships with politicians. And even if it is very common and everybody does it, I think that we should eradicate that. That should not be allowed to happen, and it should be changed. And places like El Salvador are working very hard at removing that kind of corruption. So
I hear you, and I guess my takeaway would be similar to yours, but I would add to that, I don't like the CBC-ifying of outlets in this country, where places like the Globe and Mail are behaving like the CBC. I find that like that cherry picked because of your ideology. I don't really enjoy that. We have to wrap here, but I would love to have you back. We could talk for hours, I think.
I mean, like, I have a rule. I'll talk to anybody, so I don't have a problem talking to you. Enjoyed this conversation. And yeah, thanks for having me on.
All right, David Parker, thanks very much for joining us today, buddy.
Thanks.
Yeah, there's a lot we probably disagree about, but that was an interesting conversation, to say the least. I think I'd like to explore more about his political operative side, because I think there's some things he might not be telling us. But you know what? We'll save that for another day. And until then, we'll see you next time on Blackballed. Blackballed. Blackballed.